Hello. Probably wondering why I'm recording myself with wet hair, as I have poor impulse control still. I was at work and I was thinking a little bit too much to myself later in the evening during work, and I to try to explain or maybe give a certain viewpoint on, I think it's like Exodus, um, with the pharaoh and the Egyptians per se, because my conversion is recent, very recent. I still get atheist recommended videos on YouTube, and I don't watch it because I know I'm newly converted, but I'll see like the titles and stuff, and it's also a topic that's been discussed, if the actions of the God of Abraham did on the Egyptians was evil or not. And I wanted to try to give an example or explain in a certain different way of why it is not, besides just using glorification of God's power, as some Christians might use. I wanted to do a thought experiment, more like a hypothetical. And I know a lot of people don't like hypotheticals because they will assume that I have no evidence or I can't evidently or reasonably defend my point. Though I would recommend to be open-minded, because a hypothetical scenario is just taking what a person does, what is a known wide, a history known event, and taking another that's not so accepted or not as not accepted worldwide as a fact, and pretty much putting that one into what is known and accepted, and try to get people to think about it. That's all. I know that people don't believe in Jesus Christ, and I don't blame them for questioning, because not too long ago I was agnostic myself, so it's not like I'm about to come down and be like, oh, like, no. Okay, sorry. I'll get to my point. My point. Yes. The thought experiment or the hypothetical I want to consider with the Egyptians and God of Abraham, is when people will push this idea that the Egyptian citizens were unfairly suffered God's judgment as a result of the Pharaoh's actions. And I think that is a wrong assumption, because would would those people hold that same opinion if you were just to change the scenario a little bit? Let's say if the God of Abraham done the same plagues on the Egyptians, but instead of the Egyptians, it was the German citizens during the Holocaust. I only smile because I'm nervous. Sorry. Would people say that the plagues that were done onto that society would be unjust if, when there was one too many people during the Holocaust that chose to do nothing, as their neighbors and other human beings that had loved ones and families were pretty much gathered up and put into concentration camps? While there were people who were German, who were doing what they could and save who they could, the fact that there was too little help at the time. There was a majority of people who just chose to do nothing, as the Jews were being gathered up into trains and trucks and even executed, because they were literally trying to wipe them out. And before people say, well, you can't compare Egyptians in Exodus to the Holocaust. And I understand that point, and I'm not trying to do that. My point, though, with the Israelites, that when they were in Egypt, were being worked to death. They would be whipped, and they would actually die on site, and their bodies would just be dragged off and thrown, gosh, who knows where, right? So they were being, although not gas chambered like the Jews were, they were being worked to death. And there's no way that the Egyptians citizens didn't know that for a fact, that the Israelites were being worked to death, basically. It's being, although people choose to be neutral, or be neutral, or non-opinionated about things, that alone can make you, the consequences of on action can still fall. The consequences of those higher in higher power than us, even though we choose to not to act, it can still fall upon us, because fallback has no, the fallback of evil choices has no discrimination. Anyone can suffer from evil actions. So yeah, that's how I wanted to explain it. Replacing the Egyptians with the German citizens during the Holocaust, as they knew to an extent what was happening. There's no way you could have not known what was happening to the Jews as a German back in the Holocaust. You either you knew and ignored it, or you knew and you participated in it in a way. So that's how I view what the plague on the Egyptians is, because their lack of action, knowing for the fact that their Israelites were being worked to death. Because there is no kingdom or no pharaoh or no government if there's enough civilians that stand up and decide to actually act against the corruption of the powers of people with higher power that are above them. People who are in power only stay in power is because people like us, as difficult of a pill that is to swallow, is because, and this includes me, okay, many of us are too used to comfort and security over our loved ones to ever actually want to sacrifice our welfare and the safety of our loved ones to change government. And I want to point this out that Trump's presidency, sorry if I can't pronounce that word right, if he actually becomes third term president, I won't be surprised that it's gonna if it actually does happen, because our government's been failing us for over like probably 20 years now, if not more. And people complain, but they don't do anything about it. The only extent that we do is a protest here and there, and that really goes nowhere. In order to change government, we would actually have to be willing to sacrifice our health and well-being and even our loved ones to actually want to change anything, because the first thing the government's going to do if you actually try to rebelize people is come after you and your family. So, and that's why probably the Egyptians and German citizens, although they weren't participating in the Holocaust, they were at least not active in it. Means they weren't doing anything as people are being rounded up like animals, because they feared what would happen to them and people who they loved. And that is a human aspect that is both understandable and very flawed, because that's how evil grows and spreads, and we let it happen. We just don't, either we don't acknowledge it or not fully realize it to a certain extent. And if there's nothing that I can do on my own about the whole third term presidency with Donald Trump. I'm just going to rely on the Lord, and whatever comes may come. Until people realize that our government has long gone past the days of for the people, by the people, we're just going to keep suffering that continuous loop of never actually achieving a functional government. Because anytime people vote, the current president can just undo every single action the previous president did. So there is no resolute law, policy, decision that we can ever vote on would actually stick. Because anything that we vote on or say what we want can just easily be erased by whoever comes into power next. If Donald Trump's party doesn't win upcoming election, this whole lift of the unfunding of Parent Parenthood would just be undone, and it'd be funded all over again. So let's hope, I guess, for some Christians, let's them hope that his party wins next term. Otherwise, abortion would be a wide access all over again. And possibly, I don't know if anyone in the Democrat Party can ever undo the decision what happened with Roe versus Wade, but I won't be surprised either if there's some type of loophole that they can do, and then Roe versus Wade would just be active again, or some type of way, because any decision can be undone by the upcoming president. So until people realize that nothing will ever stick until we do something, like in large numbers. I'm not talking about a few thousand or a few hundred. I'm talking about over a millions Americans would have to simultaneously to decide to enough is enough and actually physically do something about it. Be willing to sacrifice our comforts and even knowing our loved ones will be in jeopardy to actually change what is going on with our government. So, in a way, we are all complicit in letting evil have the reins over the world because we're human in the end and we have certain fears and want to protect people. We want to preserve our lives and the livelihoods of those who we care about. And those are good reasons. I'm not saying those are bad reasons, but those are the reasons why evil will always thrive because people just, at the end of the day, don't want to sacrifice themselves and their families. So I hope that's not too hard of a pill to swallow, you catch my drift. And before you say, Chelsea, it's freaking 8:34. Why are you recording and not in bed? ADHD. I couldn't get this off my mind, so I wanted to record this live. And sorry if my rambling was too much ramble. I only smile at this dark topic because I'm nervous, okay? It's not like a joy smile. It's more like a nervous type of thing. And I was praying over it too. Well, more like talking about it and kind of talking to myself about it while trying to keep the Lord in mind. So trying to simultaneously work and have a talk sesh prayer as I work, because work is time I get home I'm very, very exhausted. So I try to pray when I can, not even as I work, and because I know that it's very difficult for me to want to pray when I'm utterly exhausted. So I sometimes pray as I work, and I had that thought in my mind of wanting to use that scenario or the hypothetical to help people understand that inaction does have consequences, even though you're not the ones who are in power. So hope that makes sense in a way. Jesus may bless you all and have a good night.